One that comes to mind is time that I spent on a project with homeless people. That really was trying to understand what exactly did they require from a tech perspective. What was the thing that was going to help them to feel different or to even have an impact on their lives. And, after a period of 3 months, the entire project came out saying that they required a smartphone. And you'd probably say, but why? We trialed a project with those that had smartphones and app, really allowing them to understand their ecosystem. Again, what did that mean? That meant that in a single view, they could just understand which restaurants near them had available food just to be picked up or had excess food, right? So, that in itself led to them feeling very included in society.
Hey everyone, welcome to AI Trends with Ash. This is Ash Bella, your host. Join me in this series as I chat with industry experts, thought leaders, and professionals to gain insights into how AI is shaping the future of work. Whether you're a high schooler curious about AI in any industry, or a working professional looking to gain more knowledge, this series has something for you. In today's episode, I am thrilled to introduce Ms. Lavina Rao, a true expert in the realm of AI and technology. As a futurist leader, Ms. Rao stands at the forefront of unifying the African tech space. She combines her expertise in psychology, technology, and economics to propel her advancements in AI, blockchain, and emerging technologies. Her efforts have earned her recognition as one of the top 10 leaders advancing AI globally. Additionally, she is a force of humanizing technology and empowering tech talent across Africa. Her multidisciplinary approach, spanning various sectors, underscores her commitment to unlocking the continent's potential. With over 2 decades of leadership experience, Ms. Rao brings a wealth of knowledge to the table. From boardrooms to speaking engagements, she tackles strategy, management, and advisory roles, driving impactful change in the digital landscape. Ms. Rao's remarkable journey has led her to be recognized as a finalist for Women in AI by VentureBeat and other prestigious platforms. Join us as we delve into Ms. Rao's journey, exploring her passion for technology, her dedication to ethical AI, and her vision for a more inclusive and innovative future. Without further ado, Ms. Lavina Rao, welcome to the show. So our first question is, your career's journey has taken you from Australia's campus at Monash University to boardrooms across Africa and Europe. Could you share some pivotal moments that shaped your path to becoming a leading figure in AI?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I'd really like to start with the factor called curiosity. That in itself helped me to delve into various different areas by asking the harder questions, but also finding out the answers to those harder questions, or being in an environment where I could answer those questions. So I think, that first and foremost is one of the greatest things that I would part. The second is, having the foundational degree that allowed me to really understand the basics in terms of the field that I was in. It gave me a good understanding and a vast exposure to the many different areas that actually are within computer science. And I think the third part for me is really around the environment. So, delving back into my early days at Monash, I had, I guess, what we call a great opportunity. That great opportunity was having the access to all the different areas of tech. So all the things that I had studied in my degree was something I could go and play with in real life. So it wasn't a very restrictive role. And that for me gave me the real grounding and understanding of where to next. I knew instantaneously that I loved all areas of tech and I didn't want to specialize. So that was very difficult, but I think, having a great manager at that point in time also really helped me shape my path in an era where specialization was it. I had a manager who really helped me to understand that you could be a generalist in a specialized world. And I think that helped me to really stand out.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think it's important that you mentioned like good managers that can path or like lead you to the right path, and that it's okay to be just looking at all the aspects of tech and not really understanding what you want to do at first, because tech can be a very big and wide spectrum of things that you can do. So thank you for that insight. So, moving on, you are a leader advocating for the unification of the African tech space. What steps do you believe need to be taken to ensure that AI development in Africa is both responsible and inclusive?
I love this question. And, thanks for asking such a bold question. So I think, first and foremost, let's unpack responsible and then we'll unpack inclusive and what that means. So for me, responsible is really around having an ecosystem of players that each take their ownership and each take the responsibility for the creations of their work within the field of AI. So, what do we mean? We have developers, we have corporates, we have governments, we have academia, we have, us as digital citizens, we have youth. Every single person within that space has a place and they have a contributing place. So, it's really identifying that and then holding yourself accountable or holding each other accountable within that ecosystem. That's responsible for me. And I don't think it's any different to us in a normal societal environment where we know that, parents hold teenagers accountable to some degree, teachers hold students accountable and, the rest of it. So it's something that we're pretty familiar with, but I think we've got to get a lot more boisterous around. Regulation for me is something that helps a long way in terms of putting in the necessary frameworks to make responsible AI available. It also allows for us to have safe AI. And what does that mean? Safe AI is something that really takes into account both the human factors from a cultural and behavioral perspective, but it also takes into account things like privacy and safety of one within an environment. So for me, that's the area around responsibility. When we have to talk about inclusiveness, for me, it's impact, impact, impact. Okay, it's impact that I have within myself. It's I who have impact on my circle of trust or my circle of love. It's my impact on my community. It's my impact on society at large. So, it's always introspective into extrospective. So, having access to, for example, databases and, having open source environments is something that allows for a lot more inclusivity in an AI space to happen. That's one. Two, it also then allows for people to access, okay? And we know that inclusivity, is something that is a basic requirement that leads or blends itself to accessibility. It can't be achieved without it. So, having access to data becomes really key. And, with that itself, I think if you have an environment where you have ownership of data, it also plays a lending hand. Now, that ownership of data is one where we can talk about, majority data ownership as me as a digital citizen compared to that of governments. And this is where we know that things like classification plays a large role in terms of what AI actually has to generate or output. So I guess, in essence, or to kind of just summarize all of this, for me, it's really about having use cases that match societal challenges. And it's really around creating value and creating products that really create work.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And this next question sort of dives into that because you were talking about different like sectors that play into that. So your career has spanned multiple sectors, offering a unique perspective on the intersection of AI with various industries. So, how do you see AI reshaping traditional sectors like healthcare, finance, and agriculture in Africa?
Yeah, okay. So I think, from an AI standpoint, we know the good and the bad examples, right? So if we traditionally look at how it's been shifted or shaped, we know that we see things like improved healthcare. We know that there's, financial inclusion. We know that agriculture can become something that is a lot more accessible, traced, and producing a lot more, agricultural goods rather than us importing it. So those are like some of the, high level, examples that I guess we can talk about. But, really scaling in terms of where AI is currently, and that's really, it's lending itself into multi-modular modes, right? And what is that? It's really around how do we extract absolute core value from it. So let's delve into finance as an example. So imagine if we had an AI that is your personal assistant. Your personal assistant is something you open up your phone or, have like a medium through Siri or Alexa as an example. And you get up in the morning and you say, hi, can I make a payment to, my mom? Can I also go ahead and book a flight to the next conference that I'm attending, together with purchasing tickets for that conference. That is something that is a possibility, as an example. So what does this mean? This means that the effort that one has to put into managing your finances becomes very streamlined, right? Another extended example within the finance space is having access to an AI model that would help you to literally optimize your investments. But not only optimize your investments, it'll also at the same time cut down your costs. So it'll look at what your banking charges are. It would look at, what are your subscriptions. It will have access to understanding when last you used what streaming services, as an example, or it will have access to understanding, what insurances you've used and when last you claimed it. And, if it has actually gone up in pricing. And it would automatically have an overview of your entire finances, but it would also start to manage it on your behalf. So it would then send, for example, a letter to your streaming service to say it would like to cancel it because you haven't used it in the last, say, 6 months.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of areas that we're going into, right? If we had to take healthcare, I think it's a very blended environment, right? Blended in terms of having accessibility to telehealth medication. Telehealth accessibility and, diagnosis and all of that. So when we look at the healthcare sector, it's always around what is precondition and what is post-condition. So, precondition or pre-diagnosis is all around what are the tools that I can have available to me that can help me to monitor and better understand my body and what's happening within it, earlier and faster than a normal GP. So, in essence, what is that going to allow? It's going to allow for wearable devices to have a lot more access to a lot more information about who I am. But at the same time, I think there's the emerging field that's coming up called nanotech, and that would have a large play in terms of understanding pre-diagnosis. So giving us a snapshot view of what's currently happening within our bodies before something has to go wrong, or even to the point of something going wrong.
Right.
Okay, and then you have post-diagnosis, which is all around, how are you monitoring your recovery, whether it's post a surgery or post a diagnosis, what are the things that you're doing from a lifestyle perspective that you're perhaps taking into shape, and, almost giving you a real-time synopsis of what your current healthcare state is. Now, with that, with both those examples, there's always an element of it going too far.
Yeah.
So I think, again, just to give a summarized version of this, it's really around, tech could be tech, and it can literally solve for anything. It could be designed to solve for anything. We know this historically. So it's more about us being super intentional and focusing really on where we want to add value and at which point.
Mhm. Yeah, no. And a lot of people, like, they might be scared or intimidated by AI and its possibilities. But I think it's important, like you said, to realize that AI can be so helpful in the fields, as healthcare, finance, and agriculture, in many places. So it's really important that we address that. Okay, cool. So my next question is, with your vast experience in IT leadership, could you highlight a favorite project where AI played a significant role?
Wow. Okay, I'm not going to lie. That's a tough question because there's loads to choose from.
Yeah.
So I guess one example, or if you'd allow, I'll probably give a few examples.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind is time that I spent for about 3 months on a project with homeless people. That really was trying to understand what exactly did they require from a tech perspective. What was the thing that was going to help them to feel different or to even have an impact on their lives. And after a period of 3 months, the entire project came out saying that they required a smartphone. And you'd probably say, but why? And what we realized is that we trialed a project with those that had smartphones and app, really allowing them to understand their ecosystem. Again, what did that mean? That meant that in a single view, they could just understand which restaurants near them had available food just to be picked up
Right.
or had excess food, right? So, that in itself led to them feeling very included in society, as an example.
Yeah.
Then there's another project that I was involved with in terms of having, to plant up to 6 million trees. And this is the Green Mile project, which is done in Africa. And that is where we started to also utilize AI and deep learning modules to really start monitoring the health of the trees and understanding the long-term survivals to go together with, carbon. And then really just understanding the impact, not only around the forest itself that we were resurrecting and the green wall, but it was also then understanding the impact on human health care. It was then understanding what is the community resilience. It was then understanding what else we could possibly take when it came to climate itself. Another one that kind of really comes to mind, I guess, is around gig workers, and we know that Africa has quite a large space of gig workers, and we have companies that have obviously popped up quite massively post COVID, and where it's always about delivering things within the shortest space of time. So there's a company that was launched, and they have motorbike drivers who literally take either passengers, food, or parcels that they deliver. So almost like an Uber-like kind of thing, but on motorbikes.
Right.
And what we found with that is that the gig workers themselves didn't have much of a community to kind of go back to. So, like within their, I guess, rest periods, they really had no office space. They had no way of recharging their phones. They had no way of resting. They had no way of just, having a space where they could feel a little bit relaxed. So we were already, creating an environment for humans to be working almost AI-like, which for me was, quite an eye opener. I guess. And yeah, so those are some of the examples that kind of come to mind. One of the good, I guess, the better sort of case studies that we did was there's a community of like 250,000 people. And within that community, there was one nurse that was allocated to that large amount of people. So what did we do? We did a combination of pre-care for moms that were pregnant, and it was really taking off the weight from the actual nurse itself and from them having to travel and costing money for them to get to the nurse every month. So, it was more just checking in with them, really trying to understand, what are their vitals, what are their symptoms. So it took off a lot of pressure from the nurse in terms of having access to information that was a lot quicker and faster, where a lot more decisions could be made at a faster rate. And as a result, there was, a more increase of survival of childbirths that then happened from that.
Wow, those are amazing projects that you've worked on. And I think that it's really important to notice how much AI is helping, humanity with, tedious tasks that can be, handled with AI and artificial intelligence. So that's amazing. So my next question is, you've been recognized for your commitment to responsible AI, including being named one of the top 100 women in AI ethics. What guiding principles do you follow to ensure that AI technologies are developed ethically?
Yeah, this is quite an important facet for me, and it rings home just purely because, of leave no man behind. And I believe that that concept is something even within the digital realm that we really need to take to heart. So for me, it really gets split around what is inclusive, what is accountable, what is fair, what is being transparent, how are we handling, data privacy and policies and security, and how are we, then allowing ourselves to really create a safe space digitally for everyone. And that really blends itself to things like accessibility, affordability, that really ring true. And I guess if we had to really like kind of zone out a little bit and get a bit of a wider view, it's always around having, society together with the citizen, and then together with the actual environment or the tech environment, and those are the kind of three pillars that we always are revolving around, right? And sometimes they get intertwined and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they repulse each other. And it's really understanding where those points are, to then, understand where the ethical applications of it really sit. And, ethical applications can stem all the way from a corporate's culture to corporate policies to, governmental regulations and policies and strategies for a country. It can literally exist anywhere and everywhere if you really wanted to take ethics seriously.
Yeah, of course. Wow. Okay. Ethicality is really important for your name, your branch. So my next question is, with your background in digital psychology, could you discuss the potential psychological impacts of widespread AI adoption and how we can mitigate any negative effects on individuals that and society, especially students?
I think I'll start answering the question by us as an individual. And, as a result, I understand and I have a first-hand sort of exposure to what, tech is doing to you. So perhaps I'll start with a little bit of that. And we've seen some research, but not a lot, around the impact of the use of technology, and this is really around, anxiety, addiction, social isolation, depression. Those are things that are there, and that get really highlighted, together with like normal behavioral day-to-day things like added stress, irritability, and for me, I think it's a really tough job right now for any youth to be navigating the space of tech because it's an over inundation. And it's really allowing and reminding yourself that you've got to bring back balance. So as much as there's that, let's zone out into like, the societal I guess, concerns that they have. One is really around, the biasness of AI. And I think that's something that's there and that gets spoken about a lot, all the way from frameworks to culture to making conscious choices, right? And, so how do we build AI that actually is completely inclusive and is not intentionally leaving anyone out, right? How can we cater for that? And I think one of the examples that stand out is obviously Microsoft's, sort of chatbot that kind of happened a few years ago and literally learned behavior, from the database that it was given. And within, I think, a couple of hours, it was already remarking and replying back in very, racist and sexist kind of comments. So, it had to be taken down. So, those are kind of things that we've really got to try to avoid through the bias sort of environment. Another one, I guess, that a lot of people talk around is, the loss of jobs. And I think for me, my standpoint is really around you've got to be able to reinvent yourselves. So, what does this mean? This means that allow for automation to happen, but also allow at which point you are willing to draw the line. So, for example, having a bot that can vacuum your home or clean your home may be okay because it's allowing you more time to focus on the things that you need to. So, it's that balanced approach. But also at the same time, I think we have an opportunity, and this is every single one of us, by being multidisciplinary. Multidisciplinary is going to allow you to have no constraints in your mind. So therefore, you're able to achieve. I think, we obviously know that a lot of jobs can be taken over, whether we're talking about coding, whether we're talking about creativity, and the rest of it. But I think, again, it's find the niche because there always is. So if we had to traditionally look back at tech, when we had the software era that came about, or when we had the PC era that came about, or when we had the mobile phones that came about, everyone thought that was the end. And it never was. The entire mass populations looked at other areas of how they could then reinvent themselves and find gaps in terms of where to draw the balance.
Yeah.
I think the third point.
Yeah,
no,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was just going to say that's really cool how people, took the idea of AI and then ran with it with their own specific companies or ideas.
Yeah, did you know, fun fact, that within the first month of ChatGPT being launched, do you want to take a guess at how many startups actually exist?
Oh, I don't want to guess. Over like 1,000 maybe?
It was actually 600.
600. Wow. Wow, that's a lot.
600 startups within 1 month, within 30 days
Oh, 1
of
month.
having accessibility to ChatGPT.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's insane, right? So to our point, I think we find ways to innovate anyway.
Yeah.
I think the third point for me is really around the shift in human experience. So what do I mean by that? I mean that we've got to really understand where we want tech to be applied, where we want tech to be influenced, where we want tech to be impacted, and where we want the dependency in our lives of tech. Now, that itself is always, where do we draw the line? Where do we have boundaries, right? And that goes from self boundaries to community, family, and societal. And I think, there's other areas like, regulations and, there's also a fear around accelerated hacking and how do we then prevent that? And then I guess there's the much doomed and gloomed, conversation around AI terrorism or weaponization that needs to happen. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that are there, but I think we've got to really take the time and extensively understand our human reasoning and understand where exactly we want the potential, as well as, understanding where the adverse impacts may actually exist in this like balance between man and machine.
Yeah, and I think it's really crucial that you mentioned how, AI models are very like dependent on the people that make them. So great. So my next question is, Ms. Rao, you've been described as a passionate dancer and health enthusiast. How do you interest outside of tech influence your approach to problem solving and innovation within the AI space?
Okay, so again, I think it's just realigning the balance within myself, and understanding that you cannot be too extreme on one end. So as much as you may be an academic or a mathematician or, someone that's crazy about understanding the human mind, you've always got to be able to center yourself around, a variety of things. And I think there's patterns in variety. Those patterns in variety allow you to understand and see something in your field that's very different. So, having the ability to have different viewpoints allows you to really stand out within your space and gives you your uniqueness, which is why we're all said to be unique anyway in the first place. So it's just really taking the things around you and, understanding how to view the problems, but also how to view the solutions. So I think, the similarities are definitely, dancers definitely, follow different steps, but it creates beauty. So does coding. It follows a particular set of steps and it creates beauty. So does healthcare, and being in that space. So yeah, I think that's somewhat the similarity.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so my next question is, I saw this on your LinkedIn, but your tiny house office sounds like a unique retreat. How would you think your creative environment impacts your work in psychology, technology, and economics, and even AI?
I think for me, through the time, I really had exposure to always having the latest tech and, being able to have access to that and being able to play around with it. And whether it was the latest tech, whether it was the latest software, whether it's, the latest clothing, whether it's the latest food trend, whatever the case may be, I think, we all experience this all the time around us 24/7. But the thing that really kind of allows me to remain, I guess, grounded is the understanding that because something's launched, because something's new, it doesn't mean I have to use it. I can understand it, but it doesn't necessarily mean I need a place for it in my environment. And I think, if we become very like selective around what we allow within our own personal environment, it takes us a long way, right? So, a lot of it is around energy and around understanding, that we just don't need a lot to actually survive. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And having your own like place that that's specific to you is really important for, in terms of creativity and just having that place that you can set aside from your like your work life and stuff. So great. So my final question is, there's often discussion about potential risks associated with AI, including concerns of an AI apocalypse. So what's your perspective on this, and how can we ensure that AI technologies are developed in a way that benefits humanity?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to the equation. The equation is we've got to be deliberate, we've got to be precise, and we've got to be careful at the same time. And that's for us as individuals. That's us as corporates. That's us as governments. No matter where we stand in the spectrum in that ecosystem, it's really important that we play our part. We have a choice. That choice is literally narrowing every day. Okay. That choice of whether or not we end up in an AI apocalypse or, utopian or dystopian kind of environment, that is literally the choices we're making every day individually, but somehow it's having a very collective effect. So I think there's merit in us really understanding that everything that we've created thus far in humanity has really been a product of our intelligence. So, by that itself, we really have to allow the balancing of man and machine to then exist in a world. And we get to define that. That's something that I really stress all the time. We can't fear something and we can't give up on something already. We're the ones creating it, so it makes no sense. It makes sense when it's more developed and it's more mature. But right now, we still have an opportunity in its infancy stage to have certain things in place and to change the narrative, to almost always make sure there's an off switch, as an example. So, yeah, I think for me, it's, ensuring that we are, deliberate, precise, and very careful is probably the key for all of us.
I agree, definitely. So awesome. That brings us to the conclusion of this wonderful podcast with Miss Lavina Rao, a trailblazing leader at the forefront of Africa's tech. Her journey through diverse industries is truly fascinating. Ms. Rao's insights have offered us a glimpse into the school students. We've learned not only about exciting advancements in AI, but also about the importance of ethical considerations in driving meaningful change. And thank you, Ms. Rao, for sharing your favorite projects in AI. It was very insightful. Your journey is a great inspiration for our high school community to embrace our passions and think innovatively. So before we sign off, Ms. Rao, do you have any final thoughts for our audience or extra advice that you would like to give?
Technology has always been there where they're not only replicating our ideas, they're also manufacturing them and they're even distributing them. Okay, so hence the over inundation that we feel at the moment. But having said that, I still believe in this human machine AI sort of collaboration and balance scale that we can have and we can achieve. The challenge is whether or not us as humanity can actually adapt and change our values and change our practices to actually then understand these new opportunities. And I guess, the parting sort of advice is that, every nanosecond of every day, we have a choice. So stay curious and keep adding value.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ms. Lavina Rao, for joining me today. It's been an absolute privilege to have you on my podcast. With that, we wrap up this episode with Ms. Rao, a true leader in the world of AI and inclusive technology. I will see you all in my next episode. Until then, stay curious. Bye.